Welcome back to Uncanny X-Minutes. I'm your host, Stasia.
Producer James.
And this week we are looking at the X-Men movie, the first one, at minutes 100 to 104.
I think you mean to say we're finishing up the X-Men movie.
Yes, that's why there's only 4 minutes.
That's why there's 4 minutes. You want to know what happens during these 4 minutes? Nothing but credits.
It's a lot of credits.
So we're not going to talk about the credits.
No. Why would we?
No.
Terrible.
Not unless there was a comic book writer hidden in there, and I wouldn't know because I did not scour the credits for like big ups to Chris Claremont.
No, I didn't do that. What are we going to do instead, James?
I'm going to talk about all sorts of things. I did some research. You did some research. I think we kind of did some independent study this week.
Really like advanced class in X-Men 1 movie?
Yeah. I decided to, I personally tackled X-Men comics around release of this movie. Mm-hmm. So that's what I
cool.
What did you
I personally
research?
tackled a kind of a little bit of that, but actually my goal was to find the companion piece to this movie in comic books. And
like the official movie adaptation?
No.
Oh, like the analog.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it turned out to be kind of something that released around the same time. So I'm curious what you found, and then I can maybe fill in some other bits as we go
It
through
probably is if that's what you're
maybe
if that's what you did.
We'll find out. But I have some other stuff too. So.
It's funny, there is an official movie adaptation. I had a hard time getting a hold of it, so I didn't.
Yeah. We have X2s.
We do. I got a physical copy of X2. So when we finish the second movie, we'll read that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wasn't going to go on a shady website and go page by page, like within the website. I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah. What I brought was a crossover.
Okay.
It's not one single like run or anything like that. It's a specific crossover event.
Okay.
So it's called Dream's End. Did you read this?
No, I did not read that.
It's not what you brought. Okay.
There were issues that literally say the comic that inspired the movie on the cover.
Oh.
So I read those comics and a bunch of the stuff that led up to it. Because I was kind of curious what stories were going on if you were like, oh, there's an X-Men movie coming out. So you're like, let's go to the comic book shop and let's just pick up X-Men. What was happening if you were going to pick that up?
Got it.
So I started reading a little early, and it was while Alan Davis was writing the book, both X-Men and Uncanny X-Men.
Got it.
So when I read it, it was kind of a weird point where Xavier just disbands the X-Men. Like he pushes them so hard that they decide to break up.
Okay.
They're like, we all need a break. We had some crazy stuff go on. They had a previous adventure. They went to the Skrull homeworld and it got destroyed.
Oh, I don't remember that. This is the era. Let me remind all the listeners, this is the era where I didn't read X-Men.
It's okay. So Wolverine, Jean, and Scott go off on an adventure. Wolverine gets killed.
Okay.
They bring all of the X-Men together. So there's like issues of everyone sort of on vacation. And so everyone's got little adventures going on. They all come back because Wolverine had died. And they have this big psychic fake fight. They have this big brawl, which ends up not being real, is what ends up happening. Professor X sort of manipulates everyone to think they're fighting. And if they died in the fake fight, it means they were not the mole he's been looking for.
Oh my God.
So Professor X this entire time has been manipulating all of the X-Men to figure out who is the mole.
That's crazy.
Turns out it was Wolverine.
Okay.
The dead one. He was actually a Skrull.
Oh, yes. Okay. I've read a little bit of this because I remember talking about this panel where you showed me this panel.
I probably showed it to
Professor X was being a huge jerk to Wolverine. And I'm like, what is this about?
This was after the episode where you say Wolverine's left the team for all sorts of reasons.
Yes.
And I sent you a panel where it's just like, no, Professor X is being a jerk, so he left.
Turns out that was actually a Skrull.
That was actually a Skrull.
Ah, I see.
And then he was killed by Apocalypse's Horsemen of Death, who turned out to be Wolverine.
Right. I do remember that.
So Wolverine, with a big old sword, kills Skrull Wolverine.
That's pretty great.
That's fun.
That's fun.
That's some fun, really ridiculous nonsense. Because like on all the covers, it's like, who's the Horseman? Who's Death? Because he's got all these like scarves and stuff. You can't see who he is, obviously.
Yeah.
That led into the next big storyline, which was Apocalypse the 12.
Yes.
Okay. Which I had only heard about by listening to Jay and Miles explain the X-Men.
Which great podcast.
Great podcast where if you really want the nitty gritty continuity, you listen to them. But they were referring to the 12. It apparently was a storyline that was hinted at over and over again and then just dropped.
Yeah.
Like it just never happened. And Alan Davis picked it up and it was just so in this one, it's Apocalypse is grabbing all these different X-Men that represent different elements of like life or time or or like the literal like weather elements, whatever. And he got also the living monolith, which I don't know much about.
Okay.
Do you know anything about living monolith?
No, not really.
The only thing I know is that he absorbs mutant power, like mutant energy.
Yeah.
So the Apocalypse got all these people, popped them into a machine, and then had all their energies feeding to the living monolith,
so he could take it.
so that Apocalypse could take it.
This is God Apocalypse, right? This is what it goes into that, or no?
Well, we'll get into what that gets into in a second.
Okay.
So there's the team is pretty standard. It does include Cable and X-Man.
Interesting.
So Nate Gray and Nate Summers are both hanging out.
I did not
on the same team.
Okay.
And it's got Thunderbird, but not the one you know. Okay. So
Go on.
He is Indian, not Native American.
Okay.
His name is, I'm going to look it up here, Neil Shara, Shaara.
Okay.
He doesn't even have the same powers as Thunderbird. He generates like superheated plasma. He's like he shoots heat.
Why? You know what? That's too much. I don't need to know why.
Why is he Thunderbird?
That's fine.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
But he is new to the team and
Okay.
afraid of his power. Like that's about his only shtick. I had never heard of this guy before.
I've never heard of this guy before.
I only read him once I started reading some runs right after this. And he's an Extreme X-Men.
Okay.
Also written by Claremont.
Yeah, I haven't read Extreme X-Men either.
And doesn't make much of a splash in that either. So don't even worry about him. He's not much of anything.
It is really pretty rare where there's just X-Men I just don't know about at all. Like, haven't even heard the name really.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of them. So thank you for bringing that.
Well, I remember reading it going, who is this guy? Pardon? Okay.
Excuse me.
So Apocalypse is about to absorb everyone's energy, and Cyclops messes the whole thing up.
Got it.
He gets in the way of it. He and Apocalypse start merging together.
That's right.
So I don't think that's God Apocalypse, but
no, it's not. That's something different.
It is this weird. He's a big muscular dude with a visor, but there's no clothes. It's just kind of like a mannequin.
Okay.
like a
Got it.
smoothed over mannequin, and the visor is part of his face. That's what he kind of looks like. Well, you then get cut to Ages of Apocalypse, which is the next issue, where it is alternate realities of what's going on, and it's a last-ditch effort for Apocalypse to try taking control of all these powers.
Got it.
And it doesn't work.
That's a very interesting storyline to be
This is right before the movie comes out.
Okay. I think mine makes more sense for the movie coming out.
Yeah. This is the months before.
That would have been so confusing. If you picked it up, there's no way.
They introduce mutant Skrulls in that.
Okay.
Because now that the Skrulls' homeworld's been destroyed, the Skrulls are now using they used to if you were a mutant, they would destroy you. Like the Roman army. If you weren't up to snuff, get out of here. But now that their numbers are less and their world is no longer existing, they're using the mutants now. So one of the mutants does end up joining the X-Men for a small period of time. So that was kind of fun. So right after the Apocalypse the 12 storyline.
Yeah.
We then get a storyline with the High Evolutionary, and he removes all of the mutant X genes from Earth.
Yes.
He basically makes everyone human. And there's only a couple exceptions where, like, someone is in a real bad situation they need their X gene for. Beast and Iceman went to Genosha to, like, sneak into something. They're left now in a war-torn country because there are no X genes anymore. So the whole apartheid, like, metaphor is erupted. And Mystique was in the CIA getting information, and one of her covers. It's one of those things where she's been undercover for long enough as a person. She's worked her way up into maybe it was in CIA, maybe it was DARPA or something. But she loses her ability, and all of a sudden she's just a person there that is not the person she was when she started. So she straight up gets arrested.
Yeah.
Woof. So the High Evolutionary, his idea was, we're going to put everyone at base. Like, that's where we're going to start. Well, the problem is he had an assistant named Dr. Essex.
Mr. Sinister.
Which is Mr. Sinister's name, but he doesn't look like Mr. Sinister at all. So after he completely wipes everyone down to base human, he gets backstabbed by Mr. Sinister, who goes, "Thanks, man. Know what we're going to do now? We're turning everyone into mutants."
Yeah.
So it is kind of what happens in the movie.
Right.
I found it.
Yes.
It was like 2 issues. It's very short. But then his plan was to turn all humans into mutants. But Professor X leaves Earth with these mutant Skrulls to try finding a place for them. So he leaves, and then Claremont starts a run with the Uncanny X-Men. So, like, both of these are the same writer writing both books. The Claremont run right after, gonna be honest with you, it's kind of messy.
Yeah.
There's like 3 different types of organizations that are all going after the X-Men at the same time. One's called the Neo.
Yep.
One's called the Goth, I think it is. And I forget what the third one is. But frankly, I couldn't keep track. There were so many new characters, and none of them really stood out at all.
Yeah.
And they just keep getting attacked over and over again. It's like night and day. It's like fun fantasy, big things are happening, and then, like, all of a sudden there's just like war. It's like all these people are just attacking us all the time, and there's no drama, there's no levity. It's fine.
All right. I'm gonna step in and
Please
defend
do.
Chris Claremont.
Please do, because when I hit Claremont stuff, well,
that I think your opinion of that set is not far from the mark for most people. I think
he also, I mean, there are things in that run that I can see are very Chris Claremont staples.
Yeah.
Which work in the 70s and 80s, but when you jump to 2000s and you put them next to comics that don't do that anymore, it feels a little slow and sluggish and like expositional.
Right. It's a little bit more text heavy, which I'm on board with choo, but yes, most comic book readers are not, because it's just like they want to see, like, they show not tell kind of thing.
Right. Exactly.
So I think this is a failure of the crossovers and how this worked, because the kind of lead up that you were talking about, those 2 issues, like this happens later. So in X-Men, okay, I'm going to give you the list of issues. So it's called X-Men Dreams End. You can buy the paperback that collects all of these things. But the issue that it collects is Uncanny X-Men, so like the original 1963 run, 388 to 390.
Okay.
Cable, the 1993 run, number 87.
All right.
Bishop, The Last X-Man, 1999, number 16. And then X-Men 1991 run, issues 108 to 110.
Okay.
So you had to
I think
read
I stopped like right before all that
all
happened.
of that. So good thing I picked up
Thank
where
you.
dropped off,
Thank you.
because this is actually...
So this came out after the movie then?
Yes. But
I'm going to see, what's it, 388 you said?
388.
According to this, it came out in October.
Of 2001.
Of 2000.
Oh, of 2000. Okay.
So a couple months after the movie had released. I honestly, I think I stopped reading
right as I picked up. Perfect. So I think that they were probably relying on people who went to see the movie.
Oh, sorry, November 2000.
I think they were really relying on people who went to see the movie to pick up after the movie, not before, because this was the run that I found, because I was like, what is the run where Senator Kelly dies? Because that's what this is.
Okay.
Because that was the thing that stuck out to me in this movie. I was like, Senator Kelly dying is huge. Like, that's a huge thing to do. And like, to kill off this character who's been such a major antagonist since like the 70s. Like, that's crazy. So I was like, let me go see where he dies. And is that similar to the movie at all? Turns out, James, it is. It's actually very similar.
So they are writing the movie into the comics a little bit.
So what is happening in the comics is that this is actually Senator Kelly's presidential run. So that I had mentioned this previously.
I think I read some stuff where they were starting to talk about that.
He is running for election here. And the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants tries to kill him again. So there is another Brotherhood of Evil Mutants murder plot for Senator Kelly.
Okay.
They fail, but Mystique is running it. So also Mystique is in here.
Yeah.
She intends to not just assassinate him, but she's trying to use the legacy virus, like a changed version of it, which was supposed to kill all the mutants. That's kind of the goal of the legacy virus. But what it is now, it's only affecting people who don't have the mutant gene. And that means she's going to kill every human.
Oh, so she's flipping it. So it's almost like what happens in X-Men 2. Which hasn't been made yet.
At the end of this movie, though, they don't think, though Magneto doesn't know it.
Oh, I guess that's true.
It is the same thing. They would kill everybody.
Yeah. You're right.
Who weren't mutant, because they'd be transformed into mutants and then die.
Except for this one, she's legitimately trying to kill him, not accidentally trying to kill him.
Yes, it's not an accident. It's absolutely intentional. So that's the thing. And I thought that was like, I was like, oh, wow, that is really the movie.
That is.
That's
You're right.
what it is. And it's like a weird thing because it's across so many different issues. Like, you have to pick up one Bishop comic and one Cable comic, and like,
I think there was more going on with what I was reading, but I was like, I can't reach out any further.
I don't blame you. It ends in the death of Senator Kelly, who ends up getting murdered by what I think is like this guy who thinks he's not anti-mutant enough. So
right, you did mention that in the Senator Kelly episode.
Yes, so that's the conclusion of it, and it is kind of a thing because it's sad because Senator Kelly kind of turns around, which is kind of in the movie too, because he has like this thing with Storm when he's on right before he explodes and dies. And
it's real easy to side with mutants when you've turned into one.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is honestly Magneto's point.
Yes, but that part too, where Senator Kelly is kind of turning around, he goes to the X-Men for help. Like, there's that whole plot is also in there.
Oh, okay.
So I think if you wanted to see a version of this movie, you could pick up this trade and get like a comic version with the comic characters in it that would kind of tell you the same story-ish that you got from this. I read a little bit of the Neo stuff too, but I don't think it's as relevant as
a lot of the stuff that I read did not feel very relevant. Like, I read it all and I could not recap to you what happened. But all the stuff before it, man, I could go on for days. There was more I didn't even talk about.
The Neo stuff leads into this, so you could theoretically start if you wanted to go a little bit before the dreams end, you could start. Yeah, James is shaking his head. No, you could start with like the issue 100.
Sure, you could.
Because the team is shifting too. Like, once you get to Dream's End, like the team has like kind of changed a little bit too. But spoiler alert for this issue, though, a lot of people die. Pyro dies, Senator Kelly dies, and Moira McTaggart dies in this little brief crossover. All of those people die.
Wow.
Which is
that's crazy.
Yeah. There's also, I think technically Colossus death is referenced, or something is going on, because that's how the legacy virus got.
That's what it says I was just doing some quick clicking around, and it just has the death of Colossus is the first thing that it says.
There it is. So then you add Colossus to that.
Reprinted here for the first time. It's talking about the trade.
For the trade. It's interesting. And
Which the legacy virus, if you heard us talk about Fatal Attractions,
yes,
that's where his sister dies Ilyana dies of the legacy virus in that issue too, or that series.
Yeah. And Colossus is the one person, like basically he stops that from infecting everybody else. And it's like this heroic thing, I think.
Crazy.
So, if I remember correctly. Watch me get that wrong because I didn't reread that recently, but that's how I remember it. So, but yeah, I think that if you wanted to watch the movie and wanted that in a comic book, that would be the run that's closest, in my opinion. There's a little difference. Senator Kelly is like running for president, but it's still...
yeah, it's going to be different because of what's going on in the comics and they're trying to adapt it.
Right. But it is very similar. It's like it starts with like political rallies at the beginning. Yeah. So it has a lot of the same vibes. Genosha, like Magneto's running there in Genosha, like all that stuff is kind of a little bit different than what it is in the movie, but the vibes are there and like the characters that you expect to be there are there. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite run in the world, but I also am not the most favorite. Let me repeat that. The 2000s era is not my most favorite time for X-Men.
It's about to come back up though.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
I know. I think so too. But I mean, it's also just a personal taste because there's a lot of really popular runs that happened in this era. I just wasn't one of the people that was really enjoying it. I also have something else to bring here.
Okay.
If you don't want the movie, if you don't want the original movie, I was trying to think of what comic runs that would give a similar vibe,
like to pair with this movie.
I didn't really think I found one besides that, but what I think that the best run that I think would help you understand all of the characters that aren't in this movie that you're missing out on maybe, and also one of my favorite runs, I think you should read the original New Mutants run. Let me get on my soapbox here.
Sure.
And shout out to everybody why you should read the original New Mutants run. So that's 1983 to 1991. You get a lot of Magneto.
Yes.
So Magneto, it's a very heavy Magneto movie here. And it's a relationship between Magneto and Xavier is kind of how they start this movie. And it's actually how they bookend this movie at the beginning and the end with Professor Xavier and Magneto. The New Mutants, that original run, is so much about Magneto and Xavier, particularly from Magneto's side.
Okay.
Of understanding, like, basically in that run really early, Professor Xavier dies, quote unquote. He's not dead, but everybody thinks he is. And he gives the school to Magneto.
Okay.
You have, like, to me, that is crazy. So it's Magneto taking on the responsibility of all of these kids and the school and trying to, like, blend his dream with Charles. It's a little bit different than the movie because Magneto is really like difficult and he's still a very bad guy.
Yeah.
And the run of this, when Magneto stops teaching at the school, does convert him back into a bad guy. So this is it goes up and down.
Arc.
There's a whole arc here. So you do get to like see him fall. And I think it's really cool because it shows you it gives you a background on Magneto's philosophy, Charles's philosophy, how they've tried to accommodate each other and how they both fail that. And I think that it's really compelling. And I think if you like that relationship between them in this movie, this run will give you that. And it will also introduce you to a bunch of like X-Men and kids that are super interesting and have like really powerful like stories, especially early on. And you won't know any of these X-Men and you'll get to learn who they are from the beginning because there's not another 30 years before 1983 that you have to read or whatever to understand who these guys are.
All you need to know is that they're at a school.
They're the kids at a school. Yeah. That's it. And you can just pick up from there. And there's a lot of Emma Frost. There's a lot of like Brotherhood. Well, it's not really Brotherhood. It's the Hellfire Club, actually. It's like the primary antagonist there. And there's like a bunch of kids there. And it sets you up to read my favorite run, which is Wolverine and the X-Men. So once you get through that, you could just jump right into there and you'll have all the references they're talking about in Wolverine and the X-Men. I don't know. That's like my pitch for that like Magneto Charles storyline because I think it's just so important to understand why they're kind of friends. Because the movie doesn't give you a lot of that.
You get sense there's a history.
Yes.
Which I think is good.
Right.
But you don't get to see them they only interact twice, like you said. Beginning and there's thrice.
Yeah. Thrice.
There's beginning, middle, and end, but it's never, you never get to see them really be friends or like see they just have differences in opinion.
And you don't really get to see them struggling with trying to accommodate the other person.
I think that's probably, it's more that Professor X is trying to get Magneto to come to his side, and Magneto's trying to get Professor X. Now he doesn't really care. He's
just leave me alone.
You just do it, man. I'm just gonna do it. It's kind of one-sided.
Exactly, and I think that I always think it's more interesting when you understand Magneto and where he comes from, and they try to give you a little bit of that with the beginning of like his backstory, but like with him and Charles and their relationship, why they're playing chess together at the end. Yeah. This will fill in some of that for you. And you don't have to read like the villainous Magneto from the 70s and the 60s or whatever, where he's just Magnet Man, that's evil. Like, it's more interesting. And there are other stories for sure that explore this. The Krakoan era is also another one where there's like, there's heavy Magneto stuff going on in the Krakoan era.
Well, and they're more bros in that one too, which is nice.
And also why they're friends too, like how that changes. But I think that, without spoiling too much of Krakoa, because it's not really relevant, there's like a third person that's kind of facilitating that. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this run, it's just the two of them. Yeah. And I think it means a little bit more.
Heck, you could read X-Men #1.
Yeah.
Just straight up pick up the first issue. It's the X-Men fighting Magneto.
Yeah. It's classic.
Doesn't get more classic than that.
Those characters, as we've talked about, are so different. It's
they really are.
But here it isn't.
No.
Yeah, and also you get a lot of Storm too.
Right.
Storm is really heavy in New Mutants too, because she's hanging with Magneto. She's actually in the Hellfire Club for some of that too.
Ooh.
Yeah. Magneto becomes the Gray King. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
So like literally gray, white, and black, kind of blurry in the symbolism.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have any recommendations.
That's okay. I covered it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You did all of the heavy lifting earlier. So this is where my time to shine is here.
But so that wraps up X-Men from 2000. All 104 minutes.
It's great.
Still good. Still a good movie.
I literally was fighting for this movie the other day. It
honestly feels like they didn't even scratch the surface.
No, they didn't.
But they did, though. Like, if you knew nothing about X-Men and you walked in, you're getting thrown a whole bunch of stuff all at once. So I get why you only can do... It's kind of a small story.
That's why the team is small, too. Yeah. Because it's just too much to throw at you at once.
Right. So we'll build it next movie.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But, to me, I have to remember that, like, not everybody comes in with, like, such a baseline knowledge of the X-Men.
Right.
And so sometimes you got to go a little slow.
And for everyone else, we're here for you.
Exactly.
So this sort of finishes off our first quote unquote season.
Yeah.
I want to put these movies all in their own sort of season because they're going to be different lengths.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little break between seasons 1 and 2 before we start X-Men 2, or as I may say, X2, X-Men United.
Yes.
It's the official title. So we're going to take a little break and then we'll come back with X2.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening for the last 4 minutes of X-Men. And I'm your host, Tasha.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next 10.